Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome to our third lecture in summary translation course. As you know, the first two lectures were about some basics of translation. We talked in the second lecture about the main strategies and the main methods of translation. Such methods are literal translation, communicative and semantic translation. We also talked about metaphorical and idiomatic translation. Also, we mentioned some strategies such as addition, deletion, paraphrase, etc. All these are considered as the translator means, which he or she uses to produce a very comprehensive natural text. Who doesn't know about Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet or 1001 Nights? For sure, all of us, when we were children, had come across such literary works, and this is because there were translated copies. So translation bridges the gap between different cultures, between different languages. If I ask you before going to the other slides, if I ask you, why do you usually read literary texts? Why? Some may answer that we read for entertainment purposes. Others may answer we read for knowing about the target culture, since culture is embedded in literature. Culture is embedded in literature. Others may answer that they want, for example, to improve their English. Okay. Translating literary texts is not an easy task. It's more demanding than other types of translation. Why? Here are the reasons. First, it deals with two cultures, so the translator has to be fully aware of both cultures, the target culture and the source culture, and he has to bridge the gap between these two cultures. Two, translator has the duty of a social mediator between both cultures. Three, translate idiomatic expressions that may carry extra meaning in the translated literary genre. For example, here تفطر قلبها حزنا على رحيله. The translator has to catch not only the denotative meaning but also the connotative meaning, so he can exactly and communicatively translate the intended meaning. So here one translation could be, she was deeply sad after his departure. Furthermore, sometimes translated work is published, and this makes the job more demanding, since the demands of the publisher, readers, and writers have to be met. For example, the translator has to know about the target readers. He has to meet the translation copies or the translation with the reader's tastes, so they accept it. Here are some main basics literary genres such as fiction, drama, and poetry. In this chapter, we're going to talk about each genre, each one stylistics and syntax, and to know about the differences in translating each genre. If we start by the question, what is fiction? The word fiction is used in literature to refer to literary genre that is characterized by narration. It's usually prose written in the form of a novel, short story, or novella. So if we have prose fiction, the term prose fiction, it means what? Narration for non-real actions, and the opposite of fiction is non-fiction. non-fiction. Prose fiction themes. Here are some subgenres of fiction, and each one has its own linguistic characteristics. We have mystery, historical, romance, fantasy, western, science fiction. For those who are taking prose with me, like I want you to focus about this science fiction. You may relate this to something that we are taking in a prose course. Action or adventure, humor, medical, tragedy, thriller, and horror. All translators have to be aware that both languages have different syntactic, phonological, and lexical systems, in addition to the complicated cultural differences. You as translators have to be aware of these differences to bridge the gap between the two languages. Okay, I'm going now to our book to discuss some exercises. Here is a literary text from The Old Man and the Sea, written by Ernest Hemingway. We are going to read the source text together and see how the translator tried to use his strategies to give us a natural translation that is comprehensible for the target reader. As I said before, translators use their means to give us a very natural translation, and here I'm focusing about natural, that you read it as it's written by the original author, it's read by the original author. And I usually advise my students after they translate any text to reread it and see, does it seem natural? Do you feel that it's written in the original text? So you can decide if it needs editing, it needs to go again to the text and do some changes to produce a very natural text, and take in consideration the different stylistics between each language. So if we start here by, he was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream. The first thing the translator did here is adding this phrase كان يا مكان في قديم الزمان, which is not added here. It's common to be in Arabic, let's say novels or Arabic short stories. So here he added an utterance to meet the Arab reader's taste. He was an old man. كان هناك رجل اعتاد. طبعا here he was, usually the English sentence is nominal, however it's verbal in Arabic. Okay, he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. Taking, if I want to translate it literally, it becomes يأخذ بدون أن يأخذ سمكة. But I don't think it's very natural translation in Arabic. So بدون أن يأخذ سمكة, no. Here the translator used substitution. He replaced taking with يصطاد ولو سمكة واحدة. He communicatively translated taking a fish. In the first 40 days, a boy had been with him. Now be careful, usually English starts with the least important phrases, such as, for example, the time phrase. However, in Arabic sentences start with the most important sentences, the most important information. And as I said before, Arabic is or prefers verbal sentences. Verbal sentences which means to start with the verb. So here it doesn't start with في اليوم الأربعين in the first في أول 40 يوم ولد كان معه no, but وقد صحبه وقد the translator made some adaptation. We can call this a translation, free translation. وقد صحبه فتى في الأيام الأربعين الأولى. He didn't say ولد إنما فتى. وقد صحبه فتى في الأيام الأربعين الأولى. Okay. But after 40 days without a fish, the boy's parent had told him that the old man was now definitely and finally Salau. Salau actually is not an English word. If you go to Oxford Dictionary, you will not find a translation for it. Salau means or comes from the Spanish word salado, meaning salty. Salau is used in the context of a fisherman being unlucky. This refers to Santiago not matching a fish and Magdalene's parents refusing to let Manolin fish with the old man. So let's see how the translator translates Salau to be unlucky in fishing, which is the worst form of lucky. Okay. Simply without translating every word, he just translated it as لأن الرجل حظه قليل. And I want to tell you something. The lesser the translation is, the better is the translation. The lesser the better. كل ما كانت الترجمة أقل بيكون أفضل من أن أضل أحكي أنا كل كلمة بكلمة. يعني أنا هنا لو بدي أترجمها literally. And finally سلاو ليكون حظه قليل في الصيد وهو أسوأ أنواع الحظ. No, simply naturally he like summarized it لأن الرجل حظه قليل, and it could like transfer the intended meaning simply. Okay, it made the boy sad. It's a nominal sentence, start with it. However, it's translated as حزن الفتى. Here be careful that English prefers passive sentence while Arabic prefers active sentence. Be careful. It made the boy sad. Simply حزن الفتى. If I want to translate وجعل الفتى حزين or حزن الفتى will be more natural. To see the old man come in each day with his skiff empty بقاربه فارغا. Now this is an idiom and should be translated like idiomatically. Here the translator succeed in translating it into an Arabic idiom using يعود خالي الرفاض كل يوم. He doesn't translate it literally بقاربه فارغا with his skiff empty. No, but he translated it as يعود خالي الرفاض كل يوم. If you reread the text again, you will find that it's a natural text without any, like, let's say, strange utterances inside it. Now let's go to the slides, and I'll start by the question, what is the main feature of fiction? The answer will be it's narration. Narration is the most distinctive feature of fiction. It forms the plot of the story or the novel, which has a specific setting and the point of view. That is the voice of the narrator. The reader is taken on a journey by the narrator to follow a conflict that builds up to reach a climax and is usually followed by a resolution. Now, if the translation is resembles target texts, which is not odd, the reader will continue on this journey will continue on reading the literary works. However, if the translation is not natural, is not transparent, the reader will stop this journey and will close her or his novel and will not continue reading it. Okay. Now regarding narration, there are some discursive problems which are related to the aspects of cohesion and coherence in Arabic and English. Arabic relies heavily on conjunction as a cohesive device, while English uses more subordination. Here are some examples of like Arabic coordination: و ف ثم أو بل أم لا لكن حتى. And the English coordination are and, but, or, and, yet. Here are the subordinating conjunctions in English, such as WH words like since, if, when, because, so that, supposing that, or phrases ending in as, such, for example, as soon as long as. You have to be careful that it's usually to have run-on sentences in Arabic, since punctuation is not traditionally utilized as a cohesive device. Run-on sentences means to have two sentences without connecting them appropriately. So here the last point: while English uses subordinations or subordinates and general word as lexical cohesive devices, Arabic favors repetition of the same lexical item. For example, I may start a story with ذهب أحمد إلى السوق وقد رأى أحمد بعض زملائه. تحدث أحمد قليلا مع زملائه إلى آخره. But if I want to start with English saying that Ahmed went to the market, he, instead of repeating Ahmed, I say the pronoun he saw some of his friends. They, instead of his friends, they. So be careful that there's no problem in repetition in Arabic. Arabic favors repetition, but English does not. Okay, so here are some subordinating conjunctions also in English. We have adverbial clauses. For example, here we have the as soon as, relative clauses such as that, that, which, who. We have also here conditional clauses, if, here, or reported clauses, she told me. According to a comprehensive taxonomy, cohesive devices in English can be classified as reference, and we have cataphoric reference and anaphoric reference. I'm sure that you had come across such concepts in linguistics courses. Substitution, instead of saying, for example, Ahmad huwa or Ahmad he, ellipses, حذف, conjunction, and lexical cohesion. Reference, conjunction, and lexical cohesion are expected to be more frequent than substitution and ellipses, which might be more frequent in drama. So in a drama, it's more frequent to use substitution and ellipses. Now let's go together to page 42 in our book to discuss some exercises. In the presentation, if you remember, I said that Arabic depends heavily on coordination. while English prefers subordination, which means that Arabic accept repeating wa, fa, thumma, wa, but this is not common in English. Be careful about this point. For example, here is a text. If you want to compare it with its Arabic translation, we will find that there are many wa in Arabic. Wa, here wa again, here wa, thumma, fa. But if you count and words in this text, you will find that they are lesser than in the Arabic translation, lesser than. And this could be for a point that Arabic has no problem with long sentences. Here هنا long sentence لحتى الآن ما انتهت. long sentence لحتى الآن كل هذه هي الحديث هنا انتهت. كل هذه long sentence. فعشان يستمر باللونج sentence بستخدم coordination كتير. wa. لكن هنا if you notice, and this is one differences in the stylistics of Arabic and English. هنا stop sentence. Like English does not prefer long sentences. Here another sentence. Here another, let's say a sentence. Also here another sentence. And here another sentence. Yani 6 or 5 sentences are translated into just one sentence into Arabic. Be careful about this. So this is why it's acceptable to use wa, thumma coordinations in in Arabic. Okay? Okay. Now regarding the syntactic problems, we mentioned before that be careful that English structure, start, or Arabic is basically a verb source, a verb subject object, language, which means it starts with the verb. However, English prefers to start with the verb, with the subject. تبدأ بالفاعل. Again, while English is usually considered as subject, verb, object, let me use the marker here. Yes, Arabic is a basically verb subject object language, since subject verb object structure are less frequent. And be careful that auxiliary verbs are not always translated into Arabic. For example, if we look at this, two sentences. Mark went to the school. Mark has gone to school. Now we have here two sentences. Each sentence has specific tense. This is past simple, this is past perfect with the main verb and auxiliary verb has. Now if I want to translate both sentences into Arabic, I'll have one translation. ذهب مارك إلى المدرسة. So here we notice that the present perfect tense is translated the same as the past simple. Since Arabic tense is classified into past, present, future. But in English you can find, for example, past perfect, past simple, present perfect, and also present simple. For example, when I had finished my work here, the tense is past perfect. I went for a walk. I finished my work yesterday. Both verbs are translated the same as أنهيت, أنهيت. So two different tenses are translated in the same way in Arabic. طب how can we overcome this problem. Okay, instead like of using auxiliary verbs, Arabic uses adverbs to indicate the perfect aspect. Instead of using the auxiliary verbs, Arabic uses adverbs to indicate the perfect aspect. For example, they have just arrived from the airport. We have the auxiliary, the verb, and we have here just. So we translated it as وصلوا من المطار توا أو حالا. It uses what? Adverbs. They arrived from the airport yesterday. وصلوا من المطار. And so such adverbs are على الفور, حالا, توا, في التو, أو لتوهم. Also for the past perfect, the construction كان plus قد, which is derivatives, its derivatives is used to convey the past perfect, as shown in the following example. So here we translated had to كانت قد. كانت قد to show that the past is past, the tense is past perfect. The tense is past perfect. The progressive aspect is not rendered by auxiliary verbs. Again, in Arabic, for example here, is waiting, just translated into تنتظرني. Was beginning into بدأت. So I think this is the end of our lecture today. Next time we're going to start with lesson 10, cultural problems, domestication and foreignization. Prepare it till the end of this chapter. Now thank you for watching and see you in the next see you in the coming Zoom meeting.